My guest is Kathleen Hallal, co-founder of Nontoxic Communities. She is an accredited organic land care professional with the Northeast Organic Farming Association, and she is currently board advisor with Contact Organics. Kathleen, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Art. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. So, Kathleen, how did you get interested in promoting a more organic and non-toxic approach to life?
Well, it started with my kids when they were young. They had some autoimmune issues, and I started talking to farmers to kind of figure out what they would recommend I feed my kids and I don't feed my kids to keep them healthier. And I learned about GMOs and Roundup and everything that's going into food production. So we switched to a completely organic diet. And when we did, my children's health improved massively, just like night and day. We stopped going to the pediatrician. And so later I noticed that they were spraying those same chemicals around the schoolyard and in the city parks. And I decided to do something about it. And I went to the city of Irvine and the school district. I worked kind of through my PTA at first, where I was the head of health and safety for the children in the whole district. And then we eventually, all the PTA presidents voted to ask the district to stop using toxic pesticides. And then shortly afterward, we went to the city and asked the same, and they agreed. And it's been over 9 years. We have an organics first city policy in Irvine, and it's wonderful.
You're in Irvine, California?
Yes.
So what is a glyphosate and why is it important?
Glyphosate is what is considered the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup. You know, you see Roundup everywhere and it's used everywhere. It's still sold in Home Depot and Lowe's, even after the lawsuits. But glyphosate is considered the active ingredient. And it is a carcinogen. It has been declared a carcinogen by the WHO's Council on Cancer. It's called IARC. And they came down with that decision because they looked at the whole body of science around glyphosate. And they said by far the evidence is overwhelming that this is a carcinogen. So we're going to classify it, I think it was category 2B carcinogen, meaning it was probably carcinogenic to humans. And the reason it got that designation is because all the lab testing is on animals, and it's considered unethical to do lab testing on humans. So they kind of just let it out there, and we are the lab test. But I'm convinced that it does cause cancer, and it has been shown to cause cancer in humans in parts per trillion, which is 1 drop in 3 Olympic swimming pools. That's how little, you know, the amount is that starts breast cancer cells growing. And I just learned about so many problems with glyphosate, from destroying the soil health to inhibiting animal fertility to causing skin problems, stomach problems in animals. And they have these problems when they're fed food that has glyphosate on it. And then when the farmers or scientists pull that food and feed them food without that residue, the conditions go away. Not the cancer, but other conditions like eczema, fertility issues, and so on. So I've just read so much science. I mean, I think I collected up to 2,000 studies, and I finally stopped. I was like, there's just no point in this. And I decided to go out and try and get communities to drop Roundup, stop using glyphosate and its cousin glufosinate, which is a Bayer product, which they're both products that were created to go along with the seed in GM crops, and they're big money makers for the chemical industry. And they're now also commonly used still in parks and around school grounds. And so I'm on a mission to get communities to stop using such chemicals around children, around our pets, around pollinators, and hopefully on our food. I'm actually working with some farmers too. So
glyphosate is used widely as a Roundup in landscaping, like residential landscaping, commercial, public parks, schools. Also, around about 1990, it became much more widely used because they developed genetically modified corn and soybeans. And the reason it's genetically modified is that it is glyphosate, it is resistant to glyphosate. So you can spray the weeds without killing the corn or the soybeans. And the stats that I've heard is something like 2/3 of a pound per person per year of glyphosate is used in the US, and then comparable numbers worldwide. So it's used on a massive scale. And it not only gets into our food in trace amounts, and also our water supply.
That's correct. It's in the rain, it's in the air. You know, these pesticides commonly drift up to 2 miles. I'm not sure what the exact stats are on glyphosate, but they also remain in the soil for a really long time. In clay soil, the half-life of glyphosate is 21 years. Half-life. In sandy soil, it will disappear more quickly. I think it's around 11 years, not positive. But at any rate, we shouldn't be under the illusion that once it dries, it's gone. It's not gone. It's sitting around, and it runs off into our waterways, our oceans, our environment, and it hurts the pollinators too. Insects are disappearing altogether, and we need them to survive. It's very critical. And the other thing that glyphosate does is it kills the soil biology. And more science is coming to understand that our biology in our body is very important. And the biology in the soil is also very important to our health, to our survival. And if you go in fields where they've repeatedly used glyphosate over the years, the soil in the fields where glyphosate is regularly used tends to be kind of a lighter color and kind of sandier or dustier in texture, and it won't stick together. And when you see a field with healthy soil, typically where they don't use any glyphosate for regenerative or organic farming, the soil is more like chocolate cake. It's kind of a darker color. It has a soily fragrance. I don't know how to describe that, but it's kind of a rich, earthy scent, and it sticks together if you press it. And that means it's full of the life and biology needed to create healthy plants and healthy crops. And healthy soil holds water better, so it requires less water for the crops. It's softer. It allows roots to grow deeper, so the plants are stronger. If there's, say, a flood or a hailstorm, the plants can stand up better. And it produces better quality food for us with higher nutrition, higher mineral content, and higher nutrition. And it all starts from the soil. But also, a lot of people are familiar that in our body now, we need to have healthy gut flora. So many people take, probiotics, or they'll eat sauerkraut or fermented foods that kind of support our gut flora. And the same thing needs to happen in the soil. And glyphosate and herbicides like it kill the soil biology, and that's really a problem.
Well, this goes to the principles of soil health, as I was exposed to through Gabe Brown. He didn't invent them and didn't claim to invent them, but if you want healthy soil, for one thing, why do you need healthy soil? You need healthy soil for many reasons. It's better for the water, plants become more resilient, but not least of all, you need healthy soil because only living soil can deliver nutrients to the plant. And so how do you get healthy soil? You want to, minimize tillage. You want to not use the, chemical fertilizers. You want to not use toxic herbicides, for example. And so if you have that tan, powdery soil, then that's soil that's dead because of probably all of the above: tillage, chemical fertilizers, chemical herbicides. And so you're saying that glyphosate goes hand in hand with a method of farming, an approach to farming that just doesn't deliver the nutrients to the plant. And if you don't deliver the nutrients to the plant, then that affects the nutritional value of what we eat.
That's correct. And I just got a nugget the other day from someone who's actually has been for a long time a proponent of conventional chemicals. And, I've heard this in other places recently too. Glyphosate's not working very well anymore. It's not working well for the farmers, and it's not working well for the landscapers. What's happening is it's a patented antimicrobial, kind of like an antibiotic, and it's been overused. So the weeds are developing resistance to it. So now glyphosate is just sort of a mixing medium where they'll put it in the tank, but they have to add now other synthetic herbicides in order to get it to effectively kill weeds. So now it's just worse. I mean, now it's not even straight glyphosate. They'll mix it with other herbicides in order to have a strong enough chemical to attack the weeds. And that's really very problematic. That's yet another problem we can add on top of the others of glyphosate-based products like Roundup.
Yeah, so there are ways to control weeds that without using toxic herbicides. So, ecosystems tend to control weeds, weeds and insect pests. And people like Gabe Brown, Will Harris, Joel Salatin, Ray Archuleta, these are people who can teach you how to grow crops without using the herbicides, which are expensive for one thing. And so...
That's correct. And actually, Gabe Brown and Ray Archuleta are on our advisory board as well for our company, Contact Organics. Mm-hmm. That's how strong our evidence is for supporting soil biology and being an effective herbicide.
Right. So what are some of the other toxic herbicides that are problematic?
Oh my gosh, there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody hears kind of about glyphosate because of the lawsuits that were lost by Monsanto, and there was so much in the press about it. But there, the second one I hear the most about is glyphosate, which is Bayer developed crops that are called Roundup ready crops, meaning they were tolerant to the chemical Roundup. And what that means is that the farmers can plant the seeds, which have the technology in them. They're genetically engineered to withstand these herbicides, and the plants grow, and then the farmer can spray the whole field, and the only thing that dies are the weeds around, say, the corn plants that they want. So that was Monsanto's baby, Roundup Ready, and those crops are tolerant to glyphosate. Bayer, that was 80% more or less of the market is or was. Bayer's baby is glyphosate, and those genetically engineered crops were called Liberty Link. And Liberty Link crops are resistant to glyphosate. It's not any better. Mm-hmm. It's a similar kind of mechanism. It's a similar kind of chemical. So those two are the big ones. And in communities, constantly I hear from landscapers, oh, you don't have to worry, we're not using glyphosate. And I say, oh, really? Well, what are you using? And they say, oh, glyphosate. Mm-hmm. They'll use a product called Cheetah Pro normally, or others. Glyphosate is not any better. It still works for them, so it's good for them. Costs more than glyphosate, but they're willing to use it in order to say they're not using glyphosate. And some of them may even believe it's a little bit safer. That's what they're told by the chemical dealers. I've heard some of them say that they were told it was considered organic. Glyphosate has never been considered organic. It's not even close to organic. That is just a fallacy. But they also go out and they use fungicides, and they'll use chemical fertilizers and on the grass areas, because glyphosate and glyphosate will kill anything that's sprayed. So on the lawn areas, they'll use what's called a selective herbicide. And what they typically use is something called Speed Zone, which is 2,4-D. And that's half of what was used in Agent Orange to spray over the jungles in Vietnam and get rid of the jungle. So it's still extremely powerful, extremely dangerous. And those are sprayed like on kids' soccer fields or park fields where kids will roll around or play with their dogs, or, the ball rolls out on the grass and then they pick it up. They're exposed, the dog's exposed. Like, it's really not good. And the problems with glyphosate are a lot stronger for dogs, I've noticed. I get a lot of reports in communities where they'll spray glyphosate and then several dogs in the neighborhood will have to go to the vet. Mm. And it's really disheartening. I just wish they wouldn't use any of it. And, for weed control, you can go out with a steam kettle, pour hot water, pull the weed, and usually get the root. You could do that, or you could just cut them down, especially before they go to seed. You could just mow it with the lawn and just accept that the lawn is not perfect. Keep clover in there. So many people are worried about clover now because the industry told us we should be. Clover is so beneficial to lawns. It puts in nitrogen naturally. And it also helps our pollinators. So, you know, products like 2,4-D wipe those things out. And, you know, there are alternatives, but I do have my product. Should I talk about that yet, or?
Sure.
Okay, after I co-founded Nontoxic Communities, I started working with a lot of cities and school districts to get them to stop using the toxic products. And over again, I heard the question, you know, Kathleen, if we work with you, if we get rid of these chemicals, what can you give us to replace them? And my only answer was certified OMRI products or other non-toxic products. But the truth is they're not that effective. They'll kind of burn off the top and then the plants grow back pretty quickly, versus the synthetic products these guys are used to working for. And ladies, there are ladies in these departments too. Mm-hmm. So I looked for something that could work, that could compete with Roundup in terms of the efficacy, and that on price is only slightly more, but it's not as much as the other products. Because one of the problems with using the organic and non-toxic products that people don't think about, that I didn't think about, are not only are they less effective, but they don't have the duration between applications. So it's actually a really doubly great cost burden, because the product costs more to begin with. And then the departments have to pay more for more man hours, maybe more trucks, maybe more insurance for the employees, maybe more salaries. All of these things are really a giant expense for these departments. And nobody out there wants to be spraying something that might hurt kids or dogs or our communities. So I learned about this product, Contact Organics, through an Iowa farmer friend, and comes from Australia. And it works completely differently from most products. Most products work because the ingredients are so harsh in some way that they more or less burn the weeds. So that's true of the chemical herbicides, and that's true of the, you know, organic and non-toxic herbicides. They're all sort of burning it so it can't thrive. This product, Contact Organics, uses technology, gentle technology, so that less than 1% acetic acid concentration more or less gently undresses the weed. It breaks down the outer waxy layer of the weed so it just dries out. But the part that's amazing about our product, and even we're kind of surprised, is the longevity you get between applications. We're getting the same longevity that people are getting who use Roundup. We're matching the longevity. After the third application, we're getting control of the weeds in an area, and something's going on with the weeds and the soil biology where we're getting the same longevity as Roundup. So in terms of applying our product, it's a little bit more expensive than glufosinate, but it's like glufosinate in that you must completely cover the weed. With Roundup, you can be a little sloppy and the weed's still going to go. With our product, you have to completely cover the weed. And the advantage of our product is that we have a very high efficacy on reducing seed viability. So anything that's above the ground, if the seed is still on the plant above the soil, it's reduced, its viability is reduced by 86%. So there's a lot less reproduction. In addition to that, we're finding there's something going on with the soil biology where oftentimes weeds just won't come back even after the first application. And I can't guarantee when that's going to happen, because sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, and we don't know exactly why, but it's happening fairly frequently. It's really exciting.
And it depends on the weed that you're dealing with, right?
It depends on the weed you're dealing with, but it also depends on the ecosystem. Like, we have a list of several invasive species that Roundup can't touch that are sprayed one time with our product and haven't come back. And we have a list of those products that I could give you so you could post, you know, under this interview. Right. And I encourage people who use our product, if you see this happen with other species or in other situations, please let us know, because we're just taking note of it. But I've seen it on several occasions myself. It's amazing. Even right here, my distributorship is based outside of Park City, and I've seen it happen in Park City. It's the strangest thing, but it's also wonderful. It's like, wow, this is really incredible. So our product works, it has two parts, and the active ingredient is Weed Terminator 20, which is just a 20% acetic acid. It's a horticultural vinegar like you would find in any, garden store. And then this is the boost. And the boost is the oils, and it's the surfactant that makes the acetic acid kind of stick to the weeds. And this is where the technology is. And you mix one part of each together. Not very much, actually. You mix them together with mostly water. It's 98% water. And you shake it up, and then you spray it with our special nozzle. Well, it's not that special. You can get it at any tractor, but it's a TG4 nozzle. And we have found that it allows for the perfect rate of application and the perfect coverage. And the weeds are just toasted. It's crazy. Do you want to show the picture, Hart?
Yeah.
We're going to show you a picture of a dandelion that I sprayed yesterday. And this is just now. So you can see the dandelions next to it, they're bright green. And the one I sprayed is just toast. And that's what happens overnight. Sometimes you can see it in just a few hours. Our product is extremely effective and very fast, and it works really well on thistle, all kinds of plants. I will say that dandelions sometimes can try to bounce back, and at first, when you first treat the area, it might need a second application after a couple weeks. You hit it, and then that's it. We found that it's interesting, but some of the herbs that are more medicinal, actually, like dandelion, like plantain, sometimes need to be hit twice. And I can't explain it, but in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, they go after one application. And in the Northern Hemisphere, sometimes they start to spring back. And if they do, you just need to spray them again real quick. And then once you get control of an area after 2 applications, and when you've gotten through the seed bank, weeds are really easy to treat. And the interesting is that fewer and fewer weeds come back the more you treat an area. So you'll have kind of bald spots. And our product completely biodegrades in the soil in under an hour. You can plant, if you want to plant something, you can plant it within the hour. And you can use it in gardens where you're going to eat the food, or flower beds, or wherever you want. You can use it to take out grass. Crabgrass sometimes needs a couple hits. It just depends on your ecosystem, where you live, how high the UV is, how hot it is. But as long as the plants are photosynthesizing, our product works. Now, I mentioned about the nozzle. I really mean it. You really need to use that nozzle. We had an agronomist, in fact, do a little study for us. He just volunteered it because he thought it was so amazing. If you don't use the TG4 nozzle, it will look like our product does not work. Mm-hmm. It's very surprising. But if you use that little nozzle, and that little nozzle fits on all Husqvarna sprayers or Ortho sprayers, or many sprayers will accept that little brass nozzle, but you just put it on once and then you're set for life. So, and we sell our product as a concentrate. Both of these ingredients are concentrated, and you can order, this size is just a sample size, 32 ounces, which only makes, depending on your concentration, between 5.5 and 8 gallons if you just wanted to try it. But I tell people it works. You should really buy a 1 gallon to start, I think, because the cost is lower. Your cost is lower per gallon, and you'll be very happy with it. The shelf life on our product is over 5 years. So I kind of did the math. You can adjust your concentration according to the difficulty of the weeds. If you're working with really like adult weeds that have been there for a while, you would use a 1:1 to 20 concentration, which is 6.4 ounces of each of these to a gallon of water. Shake it up, and then your cost per gallon is going to be $7.95. Most people, when they treat their yard, they use 2 to 3 gallons. So it's like $20 a treatment to treat your yard. It's not that bad. And I was in the market the other day. I was in Natural Grocers, and I saw they were selling Green Gobbler, the acetic acid, and it was like $22 for 1 gallon. Mm. I was like, wow, our price is pretty reasonable. But if you go down to 1:1 to 30 concentration, starting with the 3rd application of our product, when you start to get control, then that's 4.6 ounces of each per gallon, and the cost is $6.10. And then we have clients even going down to 1:1 to 40, which would be 3.2 ounces per gallon of each. and that's $4.38 a gallon. So if you buy a gallon of concentrate, it makes about 28 gallons of product. So it lasts for a while, but it's really amazing stuff. Harvard University has been using it for a couple of years now, and they can't believe it. They say it works better than Roundup. They're thrilled. And we're selling to Augusta National Golf Course, the Masters, they're using it. Park City Golf Course is using it out here in Utah. Utah Valley University, University of Utah, and I'm currently working with the University of North Carolina, University of Georgia, Emory, University of North Florida, University of Central Florida. More and more schools are jumping on. BYU is going to meet with me next week. I think they're going to pick it up. And then we're going to be approved in California, Washington, and Oregon, probably this November. So I've been waiting. A lot of people and a lot of places are very anxious to start using our product. My oldest boy goes to USC, and USC's got a big sustainability thing going, and they can't wait to get our product. And Berkeley's also in line, chomping at the bit. And, you know, more and more word's getting out that our product actually works. And we have all of the science. We've done total lab testing. We have no synthetic herbicides in our formulation. It really works through this technology. And we've also done extensive soil studies to prove that we're mild to the soil biology, and our toxicity levels are just super low. So completely non-toxic. Bees can walk through it and they'll be fine. So I'm happy to have found something. I never expected to be selling herbicides, but I feel like I want to provide the solution to communities so they'll be encouraged to switch over. And my hope is that once they get a weed control product that they like, that's safe, that they'll also switch out everything else in their program. That's my hope.
Right. So it's non-toxic, it's safe for people, safe for animals, it's good for the soil, it's effective. Yes. Because although there have been other vinegar-based, acetic acid-based products in the past, they weren't very effective. That's because your product has the two bottles, the organic, the active ingredient and the surfactant, the part that, so how does that surfactant work?
Well, the inventor of our product is an organic chemist, and that's why the name of our company is Contact Organics. He normally makes vitamin supplements for people. He treats a lot of people who are fighting cancer and so on, and he has a way of developing the vitamin supplements so they are more bioavailable, readily bioavailable. And he tried to put that technology into this herbicide just kind of on the side, on a whim, and it works like crazy. And, you know, our product is not certified organic. We will have an organic version probably in a couple of years. He has developed one, but for now we're not organic because of the way we press our oils. The Weed Terminator 20 that we use is in other products and certified organic. So this could be. But the Boost has oils in it that are extracted using an alcohol process. And it's a safe process. It's not like using hexane or anything dangerous, but it is an alcohol process so that the oils come out to be perfectly clear. Like you'll see when you use our product, the oil is very clear and the vinegar is a very high quality. Not all 20% horticultural vinegars work, we've discovered, but the top grade ones like Green Gobbler or Vinaigrine, those will work because they're very high quality. And the oils had to be perfectly clear for the technology to work because we work on technology. But everything that's in here disappears completely inside of an hour. So it doesn't hurt the environment at all. It's really, I'm thrilled to be working with it. I'm out there with a backpack and boots and gloves and I'm spraying. But it's so mild and it's so safe, and it just makes me so happy when people use it and they say, wow. You know, they say, we've had comments like you should name it Dragon's Breath. And, you know, they're just more and more people are saying that it works better than Roundup. So I'm just so thrilled to have something that can fit into an organic landscape program, even though it's an EPA bioherbicide. and it's not certified OMRI, it does fit into an organic program because it falls into that gray area, and it supports the environment, supports the soil biology. Safe to use around your kids. Like, I really hope people will start picking this up. We're a small company now. We're talking to investors. We're having incredible field testing out in cover crops and regenerative crops that Gabe Brown's involved with, and so on, and Ray Archuleta, and they can hardly wait to get this out to farmers. So yeah, I'm really excited, Hart. I've been fighting for a long time for communities to be safer, and this one, you know, we bring the receipts. We have all the science. It's really amazing.
Yeah, well, this is a solution to a problem that you've struggled with personally, and so it's a solution for you. And so,
yeah, that's right. My distributorship is called Live Clean. So if people want to order, they can go to liveclean.com. That's livkleen.com. It's also available on the Contact Organics website.
what else would you like for people to know?
Just that during May, we have some special offers. And if you order either through my website or through Contact Organics, you'll get special offers. We're encouraging people to pick this up early in the gardening season. And I will tell you that it is easier to control weeds. You can lower the concentration of our product more easily, and you'll use less if you get the weeds while they're very young. So right now. But it does work fine. Even on, I've treated giant thistles as tall as I am, and they're just gone by the next day. It's really super amazing. Like, I'm so excited. And please, if you do buy it, please email me. We love testimonials. But I'm very happy about this because I really, it's my life's mission to make communities safer and to encourage people to eat cleaner food and to, you know, use practices in their communities and around their yards that are safer. You can have a very beautiful yard and you can control your weeds, but you please stop buying Roundup, please.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit more about Nontoxic Communities. It's a nonprofit, and it's a chance for people to get organized so that their communities become non-toxic at the community level. Is that correct?
That's right. I've actually had to step down as co-founder and officer at Nontoxic Communities. I'm still a board advisor for them. But yeah, my partner Diana is still going strong, and she has all the tools you might need to go to your city officials or your school district officials to form a group and, you know, create a very nice petition, very positive, asking for positive change. And if you go to Nontoxic Communities, you can get the support to get that done. And I just kind of, it was hard for me to leave that nonprofit, but I can't be selling something and be involved with a nonprofit at the same time. To me, this is not a conflict of interest. To me, I'm just continuing on with what I care about. And I just felt compelled to get out there and provide a solution, because I just heard from city after city, you know, even if we listen to you, how can we do this? And the number one concern of cities is always weed control. So now there's a better answer.
Sounds great. Anything else?
That's all I can think of right now. I really hope that you'll try our product and order it, or ask your city or your school district to look into it. They can reach out to me. I'll be happy to provide any of the scientific studies, you know, share with you who's on our board of advisors. We have retired senior USDA, you know, ag and soil scientists, military, agricultural, biological scientists. We have, you know, Ray Archuleta, we have Gabe Brown, who wrote the book Dirt to Soil. I mean, we just have an amazing board of advisors. Also, my friend Kelly Ryerson, she's known as Glyphosate Girl. She tracked all of the Roundup trials and reported to people about it, and continues to report about the dangers of glyphosate and the dangers of using toxic herbicides. And we're just a really good team, and we just want to protect everyone. So I appreciate you having me on very much, Hart. I know you and I have the same goals.
Absolutely. Every now and then I'm gripped with a sense of urgency for, you know, for getting rid of these toxic pesticides. So, my kind of core focus is climate, and I've come to the understanding that biological diversity and thriving ecosystems are the key to regulating the climate. And ecosystems suffer for multiple reasons. One of them is a bad farming. One of them is just deforestation, but not least of all, toxic insecticides, herbicides, etc. It's no wonder that bird populations are plummeting, bee populations are plummeting. Biological diversity generally is taking a nosedive, and not least of all because we're just filling our environment with these pesticides that are harmful to us, and they're harmful to the bees, butterflies, and birds. They're harmful to our pets and our livestock. They pollute the water. They drift from where they're being used over to people who, would like to not be poisoned today, if at all possible. And so it's very urgent that we get on this. Yes. And you've provided an alternative. You've provided an effective, non-toxic alternative to the herbicides that we currently use.
Yes, that's what this is. And, people need to realize that even if you think Roundup's cheap and convenient, if you go to Home Depot and you use it, you're not only exposing yourself and your family, but you're exposing your neighbors, or you're exposing, the bees down the road, which we need, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so we need to all think about how we can use, better methods in our landscaping to protect nature. It's not worth poisoning everyone just to get rid of dandelions. It's just not worth it. So
absolutely.
I think we all need to become aware of the problems in our environment that we need to work towards solving together, especially healing the soil. I mean, people talk about climate change. Healthier soil is able to contain and capture carbon. Carbon is a good thing. Carbon's being maligned right now. We need carbon. Carbon makes plants greener. The soil holds carbon when it's healthy. That's a huge problem with unhealthy soil. It's like a block to carbon absorption. And when you have the chocolate cake soil, you have carbon being held. You save water because the plant's roots grow more deeply. You don't have to use chemical inputs like nitrogen, which further pollute the environment. I mean, if you just look at the Mississippi River and what it's doing to the Gulf of Mexico, you could see exactly what these chemicals are doing. You see it on a larger scale there, but it's created a giant dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. And if you're using this in your yard or in your community, or they're using it on your school grounds, you're contributing to that same kind of damage in your community all over. And we just need to put the brakes on and say, no, we're going to use safer products and safer methods. And we're going to respect the bees, the insects, our family's health, our pets' health. We're just going to get on it and use smarter methods. And it just takes putting your thinking cap on and opting for different methods. It's not impossible to do. If you were to see, or if most people were to see organic landscapes, they are unbelievably lush. There is nothing like an organically maintained lawn. It's just like a velvet carpet. And the health of the plants and the thickness of the grass pushes out weeds naturally. So you just need less product. And it's amazing, Hart. I know you've spoken with farmers, as have I. When you work with nature, when you start from the soil up with a healthy soil biology, your animals are healthier, your plants are healthier, and you can increase rainfall by having a healthy environment versus a naked light brown environment that's just kind of dead, that you might throw seeds on and then add some nitrogen to get some sort of fake crops, but they're not really healthy and they're not giving us the nutrients that we need. So all of us need to wake up and look for safer options to use in order to be healthier and have our communities thrive. It is an emergency.
Absolutely. Let's talk for a minute about what happens when soil is healthy and thriving for one thing, what have we done to soils on the North American continent? Our soils used to have something on the order of 7 to 8% organic matter. Through tillage, through chemical herbicides, and through chemical fertilizers, and through monocrops, I would add, we have degraded the quality of the soil to the point where it has maybe 1 or 2. If you're lucky, you're going to have 3% organic matter in these agricultural fields that have been, abused for generations. But we have the ability to draw the carbon out of the atmosphere and put it into the soil. And we do that when we have thriving ecosystems. It is thriving ecosystems with healthy, robust soil as the foundation that at a quick rate can draw carbon out of the air and put it into the ground. When you have carbon-rich soil, I want to talk about John Kemp's plant health pyramid. John Kemp is an Amish farmer in northeastern Ohio. He's one of the most brilliant analysts, one of the really innovative mind in terms of how to go regenerative with our farming. He has a plant health pyramid that has 4 levels. The first level of the pyramid is when the plants are able to take simple sugars and turn them into complex carbohydrates. At the next level, you have take amino acids and turn them into complete proteins. At the next level, and this is like a sequence that the plant will advance through if it has healthy soil. At the third level, you're you have more complex lipids. At the fourth level, you have something called plant secondary metabolites, which is the things that give plants their aroma and their flavor, and they have a role to play in plant health, and also they provide defenses for the plant. John Kemp says, and Matt Powers echoes this, that if your plant with healthy soil, if your plant advances through all those phases, then it will be impervious to diseases and pests. For example, aphids can only eat simple sugars. But if your plant is able to go from simple sugars to complex carbohydrates, there's nothing for the aphids to eat. Mm-hmm. Or if you get all the way to the plant secondary metabolites, then that gives the plant the ability to send out a signal that says, hey, I'm being eaten by something that you like to eat. So if the aphids are eating the plant, then the wasp comes and deals with the aphids. Just a really fascinating thing. And it's hard to believe that a plant can be impervious to pests and pathogens as a result of advancing through all those stages of the plant health pyramid. But that is what John Kemp is saying. And if he says it, I believe it. He's an honest guy and he's brilliant.
Yeah, he runs an annual conference. His website is Advancing Eco Agriculture. He does consulting for a lot of regenerative farmers, and he's great. And he runs an annual conference called Acres USA. I think it's called Acres USA. And there's a lot of interesting information to be had from both those sites. And yeah, I mean, this is all just about putting your thinking cap on and putting nature on your team instead of fighting against it to buy the chemical products to kill nature, right? Even if you're killing weeds or you're killing insects, you're killing, there's so much collateral damage. Mm-hmm. Regenerative farmers are putting nature on their team. And so, I spoke with a rancher who I believe you interviewed, Alejandro, mm-hmm. And he was talking about how his ranch had previously been managed with all the chemicals, but as he came in and the soil became healthier and he had added species of insects and grasses and the ground became covered with green year round in the desert, it's like a miracle. The bugs went to work for him because mm-hmm. the mesquite, which are considered a pest because they take nutrients out of the soil, started to become weakened. And when plants are weakened, the pests will attack it to kind of get rid of it. So the weakened mesquite now that's weakened because the environment is healthier is attacked by the termites, and the termites go to work on it. And then as the termites go to work, the branches fall. And then he was explaining how the beetles would go to work to finish a job. And, using nature to help be on your team is the way these regenerative farmers are operating. And it's so much more efficient and better for the environment, and in terms of soil biology, when you get into like the plant's roots and how they exchange, sugars for different kinds of nutrients with the biology in the soil, it's unbelievable. It's a symbiotic relationship everywhere, above ground, below ground. If you include birds and insects and all kinds of wildlife, just let it work together and rotate your animals. And, going back to the soil in the US, the Great Plains were formed by the bison. Mm-hmm. The bison made the Great Plains. They pooped and grass grew and it died, and then layers and layers happened. And then we had this incredibly fertile topsoil. And some soil scientists have said that if we only healed the United States Great Plains, mm-hmm. so that all of that soil was like the chocolate cake, we could contain all the excess carbon in the atmosphere, because it would be pulled down through the plants and held by the soil. And it's a healthy solution. I personally don't believe you need machines to pull down carbon and then inject the waste into the Earth's crust. I think you just need healthier soil and better plants. And we can all contribute to this by having healthier soil in our yards and supporting bees and supporting butterflies and supporting birds so that they stop disappearing. If you go and you stand in one of these GM crops that are like Roundup ready or, chemically maintained, it's super quiet. And mm-hmm. if you think about that, that's really eerie. If you stand in these cornfields in the middle of Nebraska or Iowa, you just hear the leaves tapping on one another in the wind. You hear tap, 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 tap. Mm-hmm. You don't hear any birds, no mm-hmm. crickets. There's no life. There's no mm-hmm. life. These are completely sterile fields.
Yeah.
And it's just not the way nature should be. We should be living in, in harmony with nature, even down to the smallest bacteria, the smallest level of microbiome in the soil. And these farmers like John Kemp and Gabe Brown and Ray Archuleta, they get it. And I will tell you what, there are a whole bunch of government level scientists that get it too, but they can't talk about it until they retire. And that's a real shame. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's up to us to push for these better methods to literally save our planet, save our health, save our communities.
Well, one of the great untold stories in climate and also in wildlife conservation and also in nutrition is the value of a biologically diverse farm. We have farms that are anything but biologically diverse, and that's why, as you were describing, there are no sound of bees or birds. But we can have farms that, if we have farms that are biologically diverse, meaning they have multiple kinds of crops, they have multiple kinds of livestock. For one thing, they have crops and livestock on the same farm, and then you have wildlife is not the enemy. Will Harris in Georgia has Georgia's largest population of bald eagles, according to the Georgia Department of Fish and Wildlife. Yep. So, here's a farm that's biologically diverse, and the biological diversity of the farm contributes to the wildlife contribute to the biological diversity. Mm-hmm. And that is the exact opposite of the mainstream conventional farming, where you have typically only one crop on a farm, at least one at a time. And it's a food desert for animals. Mm-hmm. It's a food desert for wildlife. You have heavy tillage. You have either tillage or herbicides or both. And that deadens the soils. You have lots of erosion. Because you have erosion, not only your soil, but the toxic pesticides go into the water supply. And it doesn't have to be that way. I
No.
think that you don't have to change the economics of farming very much for that to be completely different. And I'm inclined to think that that's the single biggest, out of every different sector, transportation, defense, agriculture. I'm inclined to think that agriculture is has the single biggest impact, for better or worse. Currently, it's for worse, but it could be for better.
Could be for better. It's the answer to stopping climate change. If it's the answer to
If we wanted to, if we actually
we-
wanted to solve that problem. I'm sorry to interrupt.
if our government wanted to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there are organizations working on this, farming organizations like Farmers Footprint, and I forgot the other one just now. It does a lot of work in DC, but it's for our politicians to decide to side with us instead of Bayer. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's what should be happening. And, Will Harris is actually a client of ours. He uses contact organics on his ranch, his farm. And if you hear any of his stories, he used to be a conventional rancher.
Mhm.
And one day he just figured it out. He said, I'm flippant. And if you talk to any of these guys who used to be conventional and adopted regenerative methods, they will tell you that their farms are thriving like 100% more.
Yeah.
They're just using nature. They brought nature on their team instead of fighting nature. And it's just so important. It's so important that we support these farmers. We should order the meat from these farmers. And, there's so much conversation right now about, get rid of all beef, buy Bill Gates GM crops or whatever to save the planet. Nothing could be further from the truth. The GM crops are leading to the destruction of our planet, and responsibly raised, cattle, poultry, pork, actually help the environment. You just have to follow the example of the farmers who know what they're doing and who rotate the animals so that they work with nature instead of going to the grocery store and buying the meat in the grocery store that was, or a restaurant or whatever that was raised on a CAFO, which is confined animal, what's it called? Farming operation. I like to call those animal concentration camps. They're just unconscionably cruel, dirty. The animals are injected with pharmaceuticals. They are fed what I consider poison food that's coated in Roundup and whatever else. I mean, they're given antibiotics, which are hurting us with antibiotic resistance on the rise. The problem is the industrial farming system. That's the problem. If we could have more local farms and buy our food locally, and especially from farmers we could meet and talk to, who care about our health, who care about the planet, that's the farming system we need to support. And I have to believe that the chemical industry probably knows all of what we're saying is true.
Oh, yeah.
But there's no room for their profit in that model.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just destroying everything to make a buck. But it's hurting us. It's hurting our society. I mean, I'm sure this figure is low, but the latest figure we have on chronic health conditions is 54% of all children have a chronic health condition. Allergies, asthma, ADHD, autism, you name it. I mean, it is unacceptable. We should be living healthier lifestyles to protect our society. Why do we accept that so many people have chronic illness? Why do we accept that animals are raised in such cruel environments? I think it's great if you want to be vegan or vegetarian. I'm not. I eat a little bit of everything, but I don't buy any meat at the grocery store. Like, I want to know who raised it, how that animal lived, that its life contributed to a healthy ecosystem. And we should all be trying to do that. My husband and I stopped going to restaurants more or less, and we took that money and put it toward our grocery bill. So we pay more for groceries, but we're much healthier, and we avoid those foods that were not raised in a responsible way. So I don't think this is a radical idea. I actually think it's very conservative, that we should respect the environment and we should support farmers who are also respecting the environment. And of course, we should push for safer methods around our yards and in our communities. It's kind of interesting because I'm finding that there are silos. There's like the community landscape, like university, municipal silo, and then there's a regenerative farming silo. And there's not a whole lot of cross communication, but they're using the same principles. The good guys are using the same principles. Protect the soil, protect our pollinators, protect nature, and make everything healthier for us and everyone in the environment. And we just need to all band together and grow our numbers. And I really appreciate you having me on, and I really appreciate all of your guests, because I know you're as passionate as I am, and there must be change. And if the government's not going to do it, then we need to do it.
Yeah, for the time being, it's up to us. We're not. I'm not holding my breath until federal policy changes, but we can change. How we buy our food and how we do our landscaping.
That's exactly right. And I'm sorry, I'm looking something up real quick for that other farm organization that is just on it about the working in DC. Mm-hmm. And I want to give a shout out to Cory Booker. He's one of the few politicians who seems to really care about this, but it's an uphill battle because there's a lot of money on the chemical side. I can't find my message right now, darn it. But I will get that to you. I will get that to you. And if you can add it like in a list, these farming organizations that should be supported, and maybe even I'll recommend a couple meat companies that I think are raising meat in a responsible way. That's the most highly nutritious for your family and also delicious. And I'll put some references there for families to kind of get on it. But to be honest, I would not wait for politicians to take care of this for us. I think that they're kind of beholden to their donations, and we are not the side with all the money.
Right.
We're the side with the good intentions.
Right. Okay, Kathleen Hallal with Contact Organics. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's talk again soon.
Yeah, go to liveclean.com to order Contact Organics, and I'd be happy to speak with you further or present any of the science that you wish to see. And thank you for having me, Hart. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Have a good day.
You too.